should we start by maybe talking a little bit, like overhead summary of like what, like who we are, where we come from, where the family is? First, maybe start with that. Would you like to start?
Okay. So I'm Rowan. I'm 24, almost 25. I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was raised in an intentional community. I was very good. I was in public school until 3rd grade. In 3rd grade, my teacher told me that I was too retarded to read, and my mom pulled me out of school immediately. I spent a couple years being fairly willfully ignorant, and then I ended up discovering unschooling, and that's really when my paradigm shifted from being unwilling to learn to actually having the motivation to find place and purpose in the world. So, yeah.
Do you have any siblings?
I have 2 siblings. One of them is 10 years older than me, and she's currently the grand manager of a Lowe's in Traverse City, has her own Lowe's, and the other one's 20 years older than me, and she got her doctorate in anthropology from, I think, Ball State University, and currently works for Kroger. She's the consumer research person for their Kashi Organics and Naturals department.
Nice. So, okay, we were both the youngest child of like big Asian. Interesting. So, my name is Avens. I was raised mostly in New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, for those who know anything about New Hampshire. My parents were, I was raised with parents who were like very intentionally doing this from the get-go. If you may have seen my talk on the main stage the other day, I talked about the fact that my parents were like hardcore libertarian activists. They were into peaceful parenting and unschooling before either of those things had a name really. And for in my family, peaceful parenting was a big thing. No spanking, no punishing, like no authoritarian parenting. And then so my siblings actually. So I have 2 older brothers, Ragnar and Hagrid Lars, and they are 12 and 9 years older than me. And my family's intention was to start with, like, to do homeschooling from the get-go. So that was something that we experienced in my life. My personal experience was homeschooling, and then a bit of I chose to take classes at a local private school because I wanted to. I had some friends who went to it. I was like, I want to see what school is like, and so I did that here and there. Like every year, I'd be like, I want to take Spanish class at that school. But it was very like if I didn't want to go in one day, I didn't have to go in. So things like that. So it would usually be like 2 days a week or something that I would spend there. So when I was about 13 years old, my mother basically was like, so like I'm working full time and like you've got a lot, like you're interested in a lot of things. Like, do you know what you want to do next? Like, do you know like what, you know, like, do you want to like, you know, do more like website design and try to get like clients and you know, like have your own little business, or like, do you want to go to college? And I was like, yeah, I want to go to college. And it was like right after Columbine happened, so like I definitely like was like scared. I was like, high school, what the hell? Like I don't want to be anywhere near high school kids. Holy shit, they're crazy. And so so when I was 14, I just walked into college and just started taking classes. And so I did 5 years of college just because like at the time there was nothing else I could do. Like I couldn't get like a full-time job. I couldn't move out on my own. I was like 14 and I was like, I'm just gonna do this. So I did. I studied a bunch of different things. I was sure that I was going to be a criminal defense lawyer and I was going to defend people against the state. And then I decided that I didn't want to do that. Not because I don't want to defend people against the state, but because I didn't want to spend that much time in school. I didn't actually I loved certain aspects of college, but I didn't really love like all of it. And I was like, I'm not gonna dedicate myself to this through a law degree. So I took a lot of classes to kind of pick and choose what I'd be interested in and see what that could do for me. And then I ended up going into like sales, and now I run a cannabis company. So you know, unschool your children and they'll sell people weed. But yeah, so I think that covers like where we come from in terms of that. And sorry for the people who missed that explanation, but I'm sure it'll be beckoned on to again. What do you think we should talk about next? I mean, we'll probably in just a few minutes we'll probably just field questions, but like I figure we'll just give you guys a basis. So anything?
I think the biggest thing that I want to bring to the table is I was, through my experience being told that I was too dumb to read in school, and when I became willfully ignorant, I wasn't really educated in economics or math, right? And then I spent those 7 years willfully ignorant, and I went to Michigan at the age of 14, moved in with a girl. She put me into college at 17, and that was the end of our relationship, and I ran away with the circus because I definitely didn't like that educational structure kind of thing. Still absolutely no math or economics. And then I spent 5 years traveling with the circus, living in tents and swamps and deserts. Still no mathematics or economics. And then until last year, Roger Beer, Bitcoin Cash, sponsored me to come here to Anarchapulco. Yeah, thank goodness for that guy. And then I learned a little bit about economics and math, and I went home. And in 1 year, I learned enough to publish a book with economic theory, create an evolution to the neoclassical economic model that allows for people that aren't all inherently rational, it allows for people with varying levels of intelligence, and it allows for people to have other motivations besides the bottom line, and start a business. So I guess the thing I want to bring, the thing I want to bring to the table is really, if your child isn't ready to learn, wants to just sit and do something, that's okay. When they want to do something, they will have the ability to do whatever they need or want to do and learn whatever they need or want to do within a year. So that's what I want to throw out there.
I think that a key part of unschooling is recognizing that when somebody is motivated to do something, when they have a vested interest in themselves, and like, I want to learn how to do this so that I can do this, right? I mean, you've watched kids like figure out how to play a video game really quickly, even if they have no background information about it. They're like, oh, okay, I figured this out. Okay, cool, I'm gonna play it. And I've beaten all the levels of a video game. I think that inherent motivation, that's what gets kids like going and learning things, and continues into our adulthood. I think my experience was slightly different because my family just straight up just grew up like books were just the biggest. The books were not only the most common thing in my household in terms of they were just everywhere. We had floor to ceiling bookshelves in every room of the house, and every one of them was covered in books. My mother's a college professor, so that's also a factor. But my family just loves books, loves reading. I grew up in the late 80s and 90s, and we didn't have cable. And so when I was little, everyone was always reading. So that to me, if my brothers were reading and my mother and father were reading, I was just like, what are you doing? And I'd climb up on someone's lap and be like, what are you doing? And my brother is 12 years older than me, and he'd be like, well, I'm reading about Frodo Baggins, and he would kind of share the story with me, and we'd read it together, and he'd show me what the words meant. And so I learned to read ridiculously early, just because I was like, that's a code. I want to know what it says. That thing in your hand, it's like an entry place to a new world, and I want to know about it. And I remember I was learning to read, I kind of figured it out, and my brother and I were reading the Chronicles of Greene series, which is a really good series if you're not familiar with it. It's the boy named oh my god, their names are weird, but Taran, and he's got this magical thing. It's a whole cute story, and it's the Black Cauldron series actually. Is what most people know it for. And I remember so Ragnar, so he's 12 years older than me, so he was a teenager, and he and I would read before I went to bed. So we were reading together, and he would read a chapter out loud to me, and I kind of read along with him. And then he would go. He was just gonna go hang out and play D&D with his friends. And so he was like, okay, that's enough. And I'd be like, I want to know what happens next. And he was like, that's enough for tonight. And he would go and play D&D with his friends. And I would literally just grab the book, and I was like, I have to know what happens next. So I figured out how to read it. And there was a lot of that in my childhood. I was reading Little House on the Prairie and Nancy Drew and Boxcar Children and all these classic books. I just started reading as soon as I could figure out how to make those words be words to me. I was like, I need to know what happens in this story. And it was funny because then there was a local private Catholic school that my friend went to, and I was taking French classes there for a little while. And I remember I was waiting for my brother to pick me up from school, and I kind of sat in on like the first grade class, just like I was just waiting, and so I was like, what are you guys learning? Like, we're doing reading, and they like showed me all these little itty bitty books, and I was like, don't you read anything like interesting? And so they like walked me to the library, and it was totally like the scene in Matilda where like she just walks into the library and just starts like reading all the books and like makes friends with the librarian. I totally did that. I was like, this is great. Oh my God, you have the big kid books. Yes, I want to read those. And so like every day, I like when I would go to like French class or any of those other classes, I would totally like sit there and after my class, I would be like, can I go to the library? And I just read. So the key part of this is that my mother told me at some point, like I had started reading, my mother literally said to me, now you can read, so now you can learn anything and you have no excuses. That's literally what she said to me. And so that catapulted everything else that I wanted to learn, everything else that I decided anything, I was like, oh, I want to learn economics. So like, and because my parents were libertarians and had every book imaginable, I just like went through our bookcases and I was like, economics in one lesson, okay. And so things like that, like that's how I had it because I came from it, and it's definitely a different experience. But I'm glad that we're able to speak to both of these
Yeah,
things.
and I think that it's really great to have these polarized perspectives of a person that was born into radical unschooling and peaceful parenting and a person that was subjected to the system, because both people have equal capacity,
Yeah.
but one person has far more drive, and it's not the person that was exposed to the public education system.
It's true.
Not that you can't develop drive, because you all will once you get past that point of what's the point, because everything's this boxed in, cut and dried, all we're going to do is serve our corporate owners kind of reality. Like, once you get to the point where you realize you can do anything, you will do anything.
Yeah.
But being raised unschooling, I think, definitely gives you that perspective from a very young age.
I think so. Also, just to be clear, I have plenty of times when I'm lazy and I don't want to learn something. So let's be very clear about that. Sometimes I'll be like, this thing, I'm just not getting no. Like, so that still doesn't align internal motivation if I'm just not interested in the subject. Do we want to open it up to questions because we seem to have one?
Absolutely.
I have a question. So I don't, have a 9-to-5 job. I take care of kids at home. They're grown now. Anyway, and I'm on my own. My daughter woke up and she's not working or anything right now. So we're home and we live in Switzerland and we can't get motivated. We have 1 month here and then we're coming back to America and we're going to get this and this done. And like, what the hell here? Why are we wasting another day? Another week went by and I had the thought, we're indoctrinated. We got to go to school and we got to be there at 8 o'clock or we'll get a tardy. Then you start going to work and you got to be there. You'll get fired. You got to be there. You got to be there. You got to be there. So is that why I can't discipline myself? Is because I am grown and raised to just be there at this time, or you're going to get a whack in the butt.
You do want to hit that at all, or should I?
It's like a new learning experience to learn to discipline yourself, and we've been told all our life.
I mean, that's the thing, though. Is like, I totally have moments when I just have no.
Of course, but
like,
this is extreme.
No, it is, and I think that it definitely like if you're born and raised into a system that's just like, okay, you're gonna go to school at 8 in the morning and get picked up at 3 p.m. I have no idea what school hours are, but I assume it's something like that. But like, and then then you get rewarded for things with grades, and and I mean, like, I think I've had a 9-to-5 job before, so I will say that like it was really weird for me to suddenly be like, oh, I have to be there at exactly this time, and things like that. But I think it kind of like a lot of like getting motivated in general has to do with aligning your motivations, like or aligning like your interests. Like when you go, if I don't get up and make myself food, I don't eat, things like that. Like you start to kind of like build in little like rewards that aren't external but are actually internal to the nature of the thing. And so I often will find myself kind of doing little rituals to say like, okay, tomorrow I'm getting up at X time and I'm going to get these things done. And I mean, I'm the queen of to-do lists. Like that's actually a thing I do a lot. Is I love to write to-do lists. And one of my biggest tricks for myself is actually that I write to-do lists that I include things that I've already done that had to pertain to the previous things, and then I check them off so I feel like I already got some things done, because it feels like it catapults me into something new. Like I go like, right, I already got like 5 things done, 3 days ago. And like, and then I can sit there and be like, oh, that's why I have to do this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And so, like for me, and also what I do is I will actually detail in my to-do list the things inside the thing. So I'll be like, I have to I have to pack for Anarchapulco, and so I'll put in all the details of the stupid things I have to pack and the laundry I have to do. And the reason I do that is so that I get this feeling of accomplishment when I check them off. Because I will say regardless of school or not, I love feeling like I checked things off a box. It's a thoroughly delicious feeling for me. So I don't know. I think that might be something to kind of tell you. And also just kind of picture. I have a friend who was not unschooled, but actually I grew up with him. He went through the public school system. Was also pagan. My family's pagan, so we had that kind of that subset. But one of my friends at one point actually decided to quit smoking. He was smoking for years, and he quit cold turkey just suddenly after years of not being able to quit. And I said to him what changed this time? And he said to me, I realized I didn't want to be the kind of person who needed a cigarette. And he was and I meditated on that idea that I don't want to be the kind of person that needs a cigarette. And he's and then every time I had a cigarette, or every time I wanted a cigarette, I started to think, this doesn't make me the kind of person I want to be. And I thought about the kind of person that was versus the person I want to be, and I just held that person I want to be inside my head, and I threw away that other person. And it was I was that's actually pretty cool. I hadn't thought of it that way, and I grew up in this life, and he went through a public school system, but he saw that, and I was that's actually that to me. I actually thought that was a really cool piece of information. So I don't know if that helps, but visualize who you want to be and what you want to do, and go what am I doing? When you lays about, you go, I'll just watch one more episode of Battlestar Galactica. Instead, go sorry, I had to make a Portlandia reference. But to kind of say oh, I don't have to wait, does this make me more of that person I want to be? And to remind yourself of that, I think that might help. I don't know.
I think to speak onto it as well, be in touch with yourself. If you're have a goal and you want to get there, ask yourself, what is it that I want to be doing right now that I could be doing that's not going for that goal, and then satisfy that desire. Because I'm a bit of a hypocrite saying it, I'm a workaholic. I've done a lot of work in the last year, putting a bunch of stuff together, and sacrificed a bunch of time when I could have been running in the forest on a wonderful day, which is really, in the end, what I would rather be doing. But yeah, it's okay to not want to be doing your work. It's okay to not want to, especially if you're take the time to think about it and be what does my body need? Because quite often, none of us move our large muscles enough. Getting large muscle movement will sharpen your mind, will sharpen your focus, and will up your productivity up to an infinite number, in my opinion.
Physical activity actually is super motivating for me, even when it's okay, I'm the weird person that relaxes by cleaning my house, so I'm probably not a good example about this, but I like to organize things. I like Marie Kondo. You've seen that little Japanese woman who likes to organize things. I like to organize things, but not because I actually, it's not about the cleaning. For me, it's about moving things physically. I love to move things physically, and I love to go out and take a walk or something and just kind of get my body flowing. So I'm just oh yeah, I want to do I get home and then from that I'm just all right, what next, world? Handy. More fun? Oh, fine. Jeez. Okay. Start.
Can you talk about boredom?
What was
Boredom?
it? Boredom?
Yeah. Okay. I think.
You look like someone who's never bored.
I think I have been bored, and I've found in my life that boredom is actually a lack of doing the thing you truly desire to do. And it comes as a result of people setting up systems to try to coerce you into doing specific things. And yeah, just like I said with the motivation, if you're bored, think about who you are, who you want to be, and what a you would want to be doing right then, and then try to figure out how to get there, which is really hard if you're in some kind of 9-to-5 job where you've committed to doing a thing. But It's all, that's what I got to say on it. How about you?
Boredom. My mind is a really fun place to be. So I find that like when I'm feeling bored with something, I tend to tap out because I'll just be like, you know, it's really cool just imagining spaceships. Like, it's a weird thing for me, but I definitely so I don't find myself often. Actually, I find that a lot of my creative processes happen when I am bored, when I am in a situation where I'm sitting there like. So one of the things I do, and I should probably throw this out here. So work-wise, I work in the cannabis industry. I also manage finances for 2 startup companies, and then the other thing I've been known to do is write about libertarian topics and anarchist topics, and I've often like to do that. I'll often be talking looking at a current event, and then I'll be like, oh, I really need to research the law about that. Like I need to research how these laws pertain to these things so that I can like talk about what the subject is. And that can be boring as fuck. Like it's just sorry if it pisses me off, but that can be really boring. And I will and I'll be sitting there like trying to like read through like legislation and like this is the most boring thing I've ever, and I'll like have to push myself to like get through it. And again, that's kind of like the lining up, like, okay, like this is not fun to do, but it gets me to a goal, which is being able to explain why HB2 is a terrible idea, blah 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 blah. But I do think that a lot of times when I experience boredom in that moment, I often find that my brain wants to do anything except that. And when it does, when my brain is going, please don't make me read another legislative summary. Like, I've noticed that my brain will be like, you know what would be really cool? Writing a story about dragons and princesses right now. And like, so my brain will just start doing something completely different because it's like anything else. And so I often find myself deviating from the task at hand to like take note, like, oh cool, like I have this really creative idea. And putting myself back to like be like, okay, Avens, you let that out. Now come back to the thing you need to work on. That can be tough, but I think that boredom is actually a really good way to get our brains stimulated because like I found that when I'm at my most busy and I don't even have time to be bored and I don't even have time to sit and be like with myself a little bit, and like I often find that like I start to lose my creative energy and it drives me a little crazy. So I definitely like to I like to be bored sometimes.
Is that I have a child and I want to be unschooling family.
Right.
So sometimes I'm afraid that he would be bored, that I have to put him activities or bring him here or there.
Right.
So I'm afraid of
I think
him being bored.
I think like, especially with small children, I think it's important when you're looking at the situation, like, okay, like, like how will I keep them interested in things, like, especially like we want to make sure that our kids are like learning learning things they need to learn, but like also make them happy about it, right? It's like, like, hey, like, learn to read, it'll be a good thing for you or whatever else. I think being able to give your child a lot of things that they can potentially learn, like allows them like, okay, I'm bored with this subject, so I can turn around and learn a different subject, to make sure that they have somewhere to turn. So like oh, I really don't like learning fractions suck. And like just turn around and go, okay, well, like I liked reading for some reason. Like one of the things I loved reading about as a like small child was I picked up one of my mother's like sociology or psychology books, and it was like way over my head, but I was like, oh, how do people's brains work? And it was just fascinating. And I was reading all this stuff, and I was like, Carl, what? And it was like this, like I went into a deep hole of it, and I didn't totally understand all of it, but like I was bored with one thing I was learning, so I just turned around and there was something else, because my mother made sure, again, I was surrounded by books all the time. Like I remember one time being like, Mom, what should I do? And Mom was just like, just pick a book, any book, read it, tell me about it. And that's actually what would happen in my household, is sometimes I would literally just grab a book off the bookshelf, I would start reading it, and then at dinner, Mom would be like, how was the book? What'd you learn? What was going on? It was like book report time. It was very fun. But anyways, you had your hand up before.
Kind of a twofold question.
Okay.
So being that you've been unschooled and you've probably grown up, had a bunch of kids around that were at school, now that you're, kind of past it, is there anything that you feel like you got or learned or, came out of that experience that you're so happy you had, which other school kids didn't have? And then conversely, anything you didn't get or have or that you missed that you might have wished you had?
Yeah, I feel like I'm very glad I didn't have the indoctrination that all the other school kids get. I run into people all the time that hear me talking about the things I'm doing, and they go, "You can't do that." I'm like, "What do you mean I can't do that? I can do anything. I have the vision in my mind. I can manifest my reality." They're like, "No, that's not the way it works." And I'm like, "But it is." And here I am in Acapulco. I stopped using U.S. fiat. I stopped working for U.S. fiat about 4 years ago. Right? People are all like, "You can't do that." But in Fort Wayne, that's the 5th poorest city in the country, and has one of the top 3 largest income disparities. And if I worked a 9-to-5 job 7 days a week, I would make less money than I do volunteering at 4 different nonprofits 4 days a week. Only it's not U.S. fiat. I get food, I get transportation, I get support in coming to events like this to present on all the things. So,
Wow.
that's one thing that I feel like I didn't get that I'm really happy about. And the thing that I got that I'm really happy about was more time with my family. Because your teacher might care for you in some ambient way, right? Like, they care for the hundreds and hundreds of kids that roll through. And they remember me. I have teachers come up and remember me, but they're not going to remember every one of those kids. You spend your time with your parents, your family you love, you build those loving connections that really drive you forward for the rest of your life. They help you know who you are and who you want to be and what you want to be like to your family and your friends. And something not uplifting. No, I don't really think anything that I would prefer to be in public school.
I used to make a joke about how I never had prom, and so as a result, prom is only the only things I think of for prom are Buffy the Vampire Slayer's prom scene and She's All That's prom scene. So literally that's what I visualize proms to look like because I never had one. And it's funny because my very best friend when I was at prom age was in a private Catholic school. Most of my friends went to private school actually because I guess I grew up in a nice part or a richer part of New Hampshire. But I remember my friend's private school, she had a prom, and she said to me, she's like, "I think I should bring you as my prom date. I don't have a boyfriend, the kids at school make fun of me anyway, why not?" And she actually asked her school, and they were like, we can't have 2 girls come to prom together. And it was 2004, 2005, and so we, and I wasn't into it, I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool to go to prom, whatever," but I think it just didn't happen. And we didn't make a big stink about it because we didn't care that much. It wasn't a lesbian cause or anything. It was just legitimately cool, I'll just go to prom as her date, and it didn't work out. But I always joke, "Oh, well, I didn't get prom." I honestly, I think there's a couple things that I know that it's less even about the schooling. I mean, we've talked about that a bit, but the way that my parents raised me with peaceful parenting was just very non-authoritarian. I was never spanked as a child. I was never punished as a child. To the point where I just thought it was kind of funny. I thought it was fun when I would do something that I knew wasn't necessarily the right thing to do, and mom would be kind of exasperated because that happens. Even if you're trying to be a non-authoritarian parent, there'll be times that you'll be like, "Hey, I want you to do this," and your kid will be like, "No," and you'll be like, and I'd have these moments where I would look at mom and be like, "Will I get grounded?" Because I'd heard of grounding, and I was like, "What is that like?" And mom was like, "Okay, well, if you were to be grounded, which you're not going to be grounded because I don't do that, but if you were to be grounded, you have to go and sit in your room, and you wouldn't be able to play with your friends." I was like, I'd be in my room, so I'd have all my books, and she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "How is that a punishment?" That was literally that was my childhood. But I think that the big thing for me that I noticed that I loved was that I didn't even realize was a thing until I got a little bit older, but my parents didn't believe in spanking. My parents respected my bodily autonomy, and I spoke about this in my presentation on Friday, but like my mother was so defensive of me being able to advocate for myself about my physical comfort. And so the story I told on Friday was about Santa Claus and the fact that I'd been at my family went to like a Christmas party, my dad's Christmas party, dad's work's Christmas party, and there was a Santa Claus there, and my family wasn't into Santa Claus, so I just didn't bother with Santa. I didn't go up and sit on Santa's lap or anything. And at some point in the night, Santa came around, was like, oh, Merry Christmas, and saw me and was like, oh, little girl, this little girl wasn't on my lap earlier. So he just picked me up out of the blue without any warning, without any introduction. And I was like, who's this adult picking me up? What the hell? And I literally just shrieked at the top of my lungs and kicked Santa in the shins. And then I ran under the Christmas tree, and then obviously child shrieking at a Christmas party, everyone looks. My mother's like, what the hell happened? And Santa Claus dude is like, your daughter just kicked me. Like, I just went to pick her up and wish her Merry Christmas. And like everyone's like, you should have your daughter apologize. And my mother, who basically looks exactly like me but 40 years older, my mother literally was like, wait, you picked her up without permission and you expect her to apologize? And so she's like, no, I think you're going to apologize to my daughter for picking her up without her permission. And so then like my brother coaxed me out from under the Christmas tree, and like I have my like confrontation with Santa, and there's my mother going, all right, Santa, do you have something to say for yourself? And that was literally like, that kind of experience was like a lot, like to the point where, and I didn't get into this in my speech, but something that I've thought about a lot is that my family taught me that like liberty is about consent, and the idea that like, if I want to give you my money, I consent to do that because I'm buying a product from you or because I want to donate to your cause, right? And if I want to hug you or I want to kiss you or I want to have sex with you, like again, it's all about consent. Like if there's no consent, then it's not okay. And that was so ingrained in me throughout my life that I think it's interesting because like we have this culture now that's now full of these conversations about sexual violence and these conversations about consent that worry me, like with young women saying, like in college and they're, drinking or they're, and they're having these experiences where men are crossing their boundaries and they don't know how to assert that necessarily. And then what happens is like, I slept with this guy and I didn't want to, and he like coerced me and now it's rape. I don't have an experience like that. I've never been raped, I've never been assaulted. And, I like to be like, cool, I'm very lucky, and it's really sick that I have to say I'm lucky about that. But there's another aspect, is that I've never allowed anyone to impose upon my boundaries. And so I've had times when I've been like out with somebody and the guy trying to feed me drinks and trying to like get all up on my shit. And I'm like, no, like I have no patience for it. And I watch a lot of women who don't know how to assert their physical autonomy because they weren't taught. They were taught that like, you have to, you want to you can't say no to hugging grandpa, like you have to do this, you have to put aside your physical comfort to make someone else happy. And they learn it very young. We teach it to small children all the time. We teach them, put aside your physical comfort because because grandma wants a hug or because uncle's whatever. And like when kids aren't comfortable, they don't know how to assert their bodily autonomy, that hits them as they grow up. And then you've got women, being like, I don't really want another drink, or I don't really want to do this, but then like they find themselves doing these things, and then there's rape, and it's like it doesn't have to be like this. We need to teach them to be like, get your hands off me, to be able to assert that. And I literally, the only one time that I ever was in a situation where I was alone with a guy, and he was trying, he was like, come on, baby, let's like just go to my room, let's whatever, and he was so aggressive. And I remember just sitting back and being like, no, I'm calling a cab, I'm going home. And he was like, oh, come on, baby. And I literally said to him, he was being so obnoxious. I actually said to this guy, I'm alone with this guy who's a lot bigger than me, and if he wanted to force me, he would have had the capacity to do so. I literally said to him, I said, look, the only way you're getting your dick inside me tonight is if you rape me. So would you like to be a rapist, or would you like to let me go? And that's literally what I said to him, and he just backed off, and he was like, I'm not a rapist. But that was literally that's how far I had to push. So I mean, one, I'm pissed off at a culture of young men that don't know how to respect boundaries, but I'm also a culture of young women that don't know how to assert them. And I wish that people could assert boundaries better. And I had that growing up. I had such a powerful assertion of boundaries that like mom didn't make me do anything for anyone else. Like, you know, making someone else comfortable was not like something I had to do ever. And I think that was such a powerful thing because I think it affected me in life so much that I can legitimately say, like, I've never been a victim of rape, I've never been a victim of assault, I've never been a victim of even like date rape or gray, you know, like boundary situations. And like I want more women to experience that. I want more women to be able to say that is the case. And I think that it helps when we teach our sons and our daughters to respect boundaries, to assert boundaries, and to not impose upon them. And I think that's something that everyone should learn. So I think that's the biggest thing for me that like from my childhood that like that's this huge, and it's such a huge instrumental part of life. And it's something that we're so bad at as a society. And like that's like the one thing like I'd love to see everyone unschooling, I'd love to see everyone doing this, that, whatever, but like if we could just teach our freaking children not to have to put aside their comfort for other people's happiness, I think we would do an amazing thing to the way that human beings interact. And it would teach everyone about consent in lots of other ways. So anyway, that was my rant on that subject. I see hands and you're okay. Sorry, I've become the
You're
person.
wonderful. That was great. Thank you so much. Yeah. Another round of applause.
I have no idea how long our talk is, by the
It'll
way.
go until it's done.
Okay, fair enough. So anyway.
My name is Marcela.
Marcela.
Soy madre unschooler desde que los niños de siempre.
She's an unschooling mother since always.
Okay.
Y en mi familia la tecnología es una cosa que siempre
Technology is something that
ha estado presente
that was
desde.
always present.
Mi marido tiene una empresa de telecomunicaciones.
Her husband has a
Tecnología.
telecommunication company and technology company.
Y entonces mis hijos desde que son pequeños, especialmente el niño, desde los 3 años y medio,
So my children, since they were little, especially the little kid, since he was 3 years old, 3.5 years old,
siempre me pedía el iPad.
was always asking me for the iPad. But dijiste que son unschoolers o schoolers?
Unschooling.
Ah, okay.
Y claro, hubo un momento en que mis miedos siempre fueron como limitar, no limitar.
And of course, my fears were always like, should I limit them? Should I not limit them?
Y en un momento dado, él fue creciendo y yo le fui permitiendo, pero siempre, digamos, priorizando la relación.
And as the years went by, I was like, sometimes I allowed it, sometimes I didn't allow it, but I always made the relationship a priority.
El tema es que él ya tiene 8 años,
Now he's 8 years old,
pero han habido periodos donde, bueno, pero en general le veo como que es su centro de todo.
and now like I can see that it's the center of his it's his everything, it's the center of everything in his life.
Juega mucho, se relaciona con otros niños,
Sí.
también ve videos de cosas que le interesan.
Yeah, he
Es un niño
looks
intelectual.
at videos, he looks at things that are interesting for him. He's a very intellectual kid.
Y la pregunta es que no sé hasta qué punto la realidad, o sea, cuando le queremos llevar a cosas naturales, de hacer cosas juntos, algo cada vez está más difícil porque está.
So the real question is, I don't know to which point it is okay to let them do that, because whenever you want to make them have them do something more natural, more outside and outdoors and stuff like that. So how do you do that?
Cada vez es más aburrido.
Every time he gets bored quickly.
¿Qué piensan de las tecnologías?
So what do you think about technology? The use of technology in children?
Mucha pasión por la tecnología.
Yeah.
Great question.
My question was going to be along those lines too. I have two 19-year-old boys who thought I was seeing the future, and I pulled them out of California school, took them down to Ecuador, did the whole unschooling thing, and it's backfired on me because of the influence of internet, YouTube, Facebook, all that crap, which I tried to stop. I've tried to limit it, but then at what point it doesn't become peaceful parenting anymore.
Right.
So I'd like to know what, as your experience as children growing up, or I didn't come in the beginning, so I don't know. I know you've been schooled a little bit, and I need to talk to you. I'm from Indiana. I grew up in the Indiana school system, and it was pretty decent. I graduated in '81, it was okay back then if school is okay, you know. But now it's all different. And do you have your GED? How do I get them to want to learn? They do not want to learn. All they want to do is have their fucking face in the internet.
And so I'm going to start with technology, okay? All the best jobs in the next 50 years are going to be on the internet. All the best jobs are going to be in coding. All the highest paying jobs are going to be in coding. I think that having the internet was very both good for my development in some ways and bad for my development in some ways. I think that as far as all of that goes, once again, it's not about letting them do a thing, letting them not do a thing. Like I said, I spent 7 years, literally 7 years, on a couch, not getting up, staring at a screen, playing video games. So what I have to say is, when your child is ready to learn, when your child has something they want to do, they will do it. And that's it. If they want to do it, they will do it, because anything we want to do, we can do.
How about if too late? I don't know. How about, I don't know how, for you it took like 7 years. How about it for some other it takes like, I don't know, 15 years? Maybe they never get connected.
Well, I am
because-
addicted to it. I used to be addicted to video games. Like when I was a kid, my dad was like very emphatic on go outside, exercise, because he was a very active, physically active person. But he was constantly prohibiting.
Right.
And later on, and even now, somehow I can't seem to control that. But now I know that it's because of the limiting, because as Dana Martin says, you know, whenever you are limiting your children or something, you take away their autonomy. And now there's a power struggle. Or they want to do it as much as they possibly can before you take them away again.
Absolutely.
And now, since I learned that, I redirected that, and now I'm an online poker pro, and I love video games. Yeah, sometimes I play them, sometimes, and I earn money out of that. So I finally balance it when I am.
This is what I have to say to all of that, right? What your child craves more than anything else in the world is your attention and your validation and your connection. It's what they want more than the iPod. It's what they want more than anything. If you want your child to go outside, don't say go outside. You say, would you please come outside with me? I miss you. I love you. I want to spend time with you. I want to run with you. Let
This
us go
sometimes
run.
doesn't work with
That's very true.
I tips out teenagers because I just went through all that. My kids were raised knowing when you hit a certain age, you're either going on with school or you're going to have a job and contribute.
So
I
I
would
think-
never let them just.
So I think that's partially something to speak to, is the fact that, so I grew up, like, okay, so my timeline was, like, I was born in '87, so, like, the internet became kind of, like, started becoming a thing as I was getting to, like, my family had internet earlier than most people. We didn't have cable TV, but we had a second phone line, and we used to, like, log in. And when I was a kid, the internet was actually limited because you could only have one person online at a time. And so, like, we would have these, like, discussions in my family. But I will say, throughout college, so I was in college and I had set up my classes so that I wasn't on campus, I didn't live on campus, so every day, my mother, I was 14, 15 years old, in college, and my mother would literally, like on 3 days a week, would drive me to my college campus and drop me off, and I would spend all day on my college campus, and then she'd pick me up on her way home from work. We timed my entire college schedule around that. And so the days that I had off, literally, there was no one else home, and I spent all of my time on the internet, literally. I would argue on message boards about libertarianism, about paganism, about about all sorts of things. And Harry Potter, big Harry Potter. And then I went from that to, I designed an interactive Harry Potter school in 1999, actually, was my first interactive Harry Potter website. And then I made literally an interactive Harry Potter school. And I was literally like 12, 13, 14, 15, running this Harry Potter school that people would literally log into and be like, I want to be sorted into a house, and I like created all these little, like, I would go, ooh, I can sort people into houses, and so I have to look up, I have to find out how to create a sorting algorithm, and so I would have to like go online and like and find code to do that, and I literally built this huge website, and like no one had any idea how young I was, and I was assigning homework to adults. Like it was really funny. It was so weird. I like literally I was like, okay, like we're gonna pretend we're here and we're in Hogwarts, and I would like make up like classes, and I would make up like homework assignments, and I would like send them out to like hundreds of people on a message board, and they would do the homework I assigned them, and I was like, this is really cool. And so one, I think that utilize, like I played with technology, like I wanted to do this thing, so then I started learning all these ancillary things around it, right? I started learning like how to code and how to do these things. But the other thing is that I will say, to some extent, you're gonna have like the kids are gonna want to do, you know, they want to do their thing, and yes, they want to spend time with you. You want to go, oh, let's go out together as a family. But sometimes kids are just like, I just really want to play on this game, and that is a thing that like I don't think you and I had necessarily as much of when we were younger, because we didn't have like these things came out when I was past college, you know. But I think that a huge thing is one, like, as early as you can to start kind of teaching kids like, oh, you want to play on your iPod or your iPad, like you want to learn how to make an app. Like it is really good for them. They should have technological capabilities, but like to say like, oh, is this cool? You like this game? Like, you know, let's get you into other games that teach you things, right? I mean, YouTube could be great if you're learning, you know, how to do, you know, and then let's say, you know, they love watching YouTube videos about like travel or something, and you're able to go, hey, we'll go as a family to this place or that place and physically see these things. So there's different ways to incorporate like real life, physical, you know, tactical experience, or tactile experience, not tactical.
A little bit of
but both, right? Yes, it's a tactical measure for tactile experience. But the other thing I think is the other big thing for me is that when I say that my parents were like not into punishing, they were still into consequences. So like my family, I never had to, for example, like someone always goes like, oh, like your parents didn't make you bathe? And I was like, no, like like if I didn't want to take a bath, my mother wouldn't force me, but my mother would say, you stink and you're not allowed to sleep in my bed tonight. Because I loved sleeping in my mother's bed all the time. And my mother would be like, you're not allowed to sleep in my bed, like you stink. No way. And that was a big thing.
Wow.
And that happened from my whole life. Like I, you know, if I didn't come to the dinner table when my mother had made dinner, she'd be like, okay, then I'm gonna eat all the dinner, and when you're hungry, you'll have to figure your shit out. And so I learned to cook because I would be like, Mom, I want this, and she'd be like, well, I'm making this, so I'll show you how to make this dinner, but I'll show you how to make this thing you want to make. But then, I don't want to make that tonight, so you're going to have to make it yourself if you want it. And she put that forth to me very early. So, she kind of said, you know, I'm not going to stop you from, if you want to eat the junk food or whatever, if you want to eat the thing that, that I don't feel like making, you just have to learn how to make it yourself, and I'll help you with that process. But similarly, my mother's rule was, she said that she wouldn't make us pay rent while we were in college because she wanted us to study, she wanted us to go to college and study and stuff. But my mother said, besides summer breaks, she said if you're out of college for more than 3 months and you're not at least a part-time student, then you have to pay rent. And that was not a negotiable thing. That was something, so that actually kept me in school longer because I was just okay, I really don't like college, but I don't want to pay rent. And it's funny because when that hit, I finished school and I was like, oh, what do I do next? And Mom was like, well, rent here is $600 a month. And it covers everything, but it's $600 a month. That was how much I would have to pay. And I remember just being like, oh, I don't like this at all. And I had a part-time job. And so what I did is I looked at okay, this is how much money I make, blah, blah, blah. And then I started talking to my friends and finding out that in Manchester, New Hampshire at the time, I could get a room in a house for $500 a month, and then I could and then there were utilities and stuff like that, and it got more expensive. But I decided that not having to my mother we were very open with each other, so we would say, like, she knew when I was, like, going out to be with a boyfriend or whatever, like, we're very open in that way, but I was like, this is kind of annoying, like, having to tell her where I am and what, like, and that kind of, like, that kind of dynamic, and I was like, I want to get out of here, so I literally, like, I moved out of my mother's house because I didn't want to pay her rent, so I paid other rent, like, I went and, like, I went and did full-time hours at my job, and I found myself having to, like, push myself to, like, do this stupid retail job that I didn't really like that much, just because what I really wanted was, like, I want to be independent. My mother says I can't do, like, my mother says, oh yeah, like, good luck out there. And and it was playful, it was fun, but it was really funny because it made me go, like, okay, I can either pay rent to my mother, and she's still gonna be like, I heard you come in at 3 in the morning. Where were you? And I was like, that's annoying, I don't want that anymore. So I literally, like, I moved out of my mother's house at 18 just so that I didn't have to have that. And so I do think, like, without being unpeaceful, it is possible to make things unpleasant for people who are like
stunning.
Like it is it's very possible to make things unpleasant for children who are not doing what they should be doing. I see your hand's been up for a little while.
Sorry. I think that you know, as adults, we know more than we have more knowledge than our children have, obviously. And I think your point is excellent that we have to be careful that we're not relinquishing our independence because of our child. So yes, we want them to have options, we want them to have choices, but just like we control what kind of foods come into our home, we control, you know, the modem can be unplugged. You know, there's a cost to the use of the computer. There's a cost to, you know, all these things. There's a cost. And that's kind of what your mom was doing. It's like, sure, you know, we will be happy to open up your, if you're going to school and you're advancing in that respect, we are more than happy to, you can live here, blah, blah, blah. But otherwise, there's a cost for us to, you know, continue having you here, and we love you, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, what's happening with parents that are in these situations is without knowing it, you have relinquished your independence to your child. And that is just as bad because you're still teaching them that it's okay to give up that comfort zone for somebody else.
I mean, everyone's needs matter in a family.
Right. And not only that, the aspect of hard technology, because there is an unhealthy aspect that they can be taught. They can read CIA papers, excuse me, but you know, I do read those a lot. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's been, you know, declassified that shows you those things will put you in a very subjective, very, you know, where you're just sucking in information that may not necessarily be the information you want them to take. So those are things to consider. You know, have you relinquished your independence, your choices? So
So what I gotta say to that is you're absolutely correct, and especially I'm speaking to your there is a cost to maintain aspect, and you're absolutely right.
not
But
just financial, but
right, no, for sure. It's like, are you familiar with the millennial psychology concept of spoons? Everybody has a certain amount of energy, and that can be measured in spoonfuls. And if you have, if it takes 5 spoonfuls of energy to get out of bed, and it takes 7 spoonfuls of energy to get in the shower, and it takes 10 spoonfuls of energy to cook yourself breakfast, if you only have 10 spoonfuls of energy, you're not going to get all those things done.
I think before millennials, didn't that come up from, it was from invisible disabilities. So people who have, let's say, MS or lupus or other, like, invisible health issues, spoons came about as a description for, like, the idea that, like, most of us have plenty of spoons, but, like, some people have a limited number of spoons. And if taking a shower takes 2 spoons and like, making yourself dinner takes this many spoons, like, you find yourself unable to use your spoons for work and things like that. So it actually
Link you to that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying though is, it's a choice that you can choose to make, living with those discomforts, to give your child different opportunities. Because clearly, in Avens' case, her mother's strategy, completely successful.
Yeah.
Avens is an incredible young lady.
I moved out before my brothers did. My brothers decided to keep paying rent at home. My brothers lived at home until they were like 25. They did pay rent though, but like I was like, I'm out. Like I don't want to tell mom where I am.
Me, on the other hand, in Indiana specifically, I touched on it before, it is the 5th poorest city in America with one of the top 3 largest income disparities. I would have had to have worked a full-time job 7 days a week and still barely been able to maintain. So the fact that my parents allowed me to stay there free of charge is really what gave me the capacity to accomplish these things that I've done in my life. So, it's all subjective, once again.
Right.
There is no one way.
Exactly. Each one has to decide, how far do we make this line?
Yes.
How much we want to give, and how much we want them to take, and how much we want to give them.
One of the funny things I actually thought of just as we were talking about, like responsibility and cost, right? One of the funny things from my childhood I remember is that my mother does, she loves to dote on us. Like, my mother is not a stay-at-home mother. My mother worked a full-time job, and but she also had, she loved to cook for us, and she loved to cook for everybody. So literally, Mom would just be like, I'm making a bunch of food, and neighbors would come over, and we have so many people at our house. But Mom, one of the things my mother always did the laundry, and we would literally, we would just throw our clothes in a hamper, and then it would just end up at the bottom of the basement stairs, and then Mom would be like, all right, throwing in clothes constantly. And it was something she just did because she just felt like she had to do it as the mom. And when I was 12 or 13, around there, my mother slipped and fell and broke her arm. And she was having trouble getting up and downstairs. She was having trouble loading the laundry. And I remember being like, wow, this is one, laundry's taking a lot longer to come around, and 2, I was like, oh, you can't do that. And so I remember being like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And so I started doing the laundry, and then I was like, I don't want to do everybody's laundry. My brothers are freaking adults. Why the hell am I doing their laundry? And then I was like, why the hell is Mom doing their laundry? And so I literally, I went to this, I was like, okay, Mom, we're going to Target, and I bought multiple hampers with each of us got a hamper. And then everyone could put their own stuff in their hampers. And then I was like, I'm gonna do Mom's laundry and my laundry. And I was like, right, you're large, you can do your own laundry. If you want it to happen in a fast way. And so I learned to do the laundry because my mother needed me. And I was able to see that. I was able to say, oh, this is something she can show me how to do and then I can help. And it was something that she hadn't dispersed as a family responsibility before that. And it's sad that she was doing it for, literally my brothers at the point were 29, 28, 7, whatever, or 22, whatever. But the idea that she had to disperse that, so she didn't operate perfectly in a whole oh yeah, everyone's needs are going to be always the same, always respected. She clearly gave of herself a lot more than she needed to. But it was really that moment in which I was like, oh, Mom can't do this thing right now. She's physically incapable. And that also happened, we had moments of Mom getting laid off from a job and finances being tighter, and Mom was really straight with us. I can't afford to maintain this, and this. If you want these things, we're gonna have to find a way to make it work. And so it became very family responsibility for this house that we had. I grew up in a house, which was really cool because I know so many people grow up in apartments and stuff. I grew up in a house, but Mom would be like, the mortgage is X, and I just got laid off, so we're gonna have to work together to make this work. And and she was very real about those things with me. And and my brothers got it too. And so as a result, we really saw the cost for things. And we weren't coddled from that, besides the laundry thing. My mother was, for some reason, she coddled us from laundry until I figured it out. But then it was funny, once my brothers could do their own laundry, they were like, wow, I can get my laundry back in a day. And I was like, yeah, isn't that cool? Because we literally, Mom would just do it when she could. And so it'd be a week turnaround if you wanted your laundry back. And it was great. I was like, isn't this nice how we all take care of our own shit? So anyway, I'm just saying that even the perfect little unschooling family can have their little problem there, and the way to solve it is to just be I'm sorry, I put your laundry in a pile, I'm gonna show you how to do it, and and that can apply to a lot of the other things, including food. I had this really weird period of my teenage years where I thought ramen noodles were really good. I don't know why. I just because it was something I'd had at a friend's house, and I was like, ramen noodles, And I tried so I was like, Mom, can we get ramen noodles? And Mom was like, no. You have good food in the house. Why do you want to eat ramen noodles? And And so like I went and bought ramen noodles and I learned how to make them because I was like, this is great. I got over it after about like a week of them, but like, but mom just was like, cool, eat your crappy food. Like you can make it yourself and you'll get over that really fast. And I did. Anyway, sorry.
This guy, you had Paul. You had your hand up a while back. To be
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't actually a question, so I don't want to be interrupting the flow of things. But it was an experience from how we did things in Australia, because we ran a community centre, and I think like the philosophy, probably a lot of you would agree, it's just exposing the kids to lots of different things, and then they find what they love, but making sure that as parents we're giving them the attention, but taking them out and having different experiences. So we had farms, and a lot of the parents were amazed to see their kids walking around with their parents, just running around the farm, helping us planting food, and just they were actually amazed that their kids thought it was so interesting to look at the fruit growing on the trees, and the parents were shocked that wow, we don't have to try and get our kids motivated or inspired. They normally live in the big city and they're just stuck on their screens, and here they are having a ball running around on the farm.
I think that's golden, right? Volunteer opportunities. Figure out what your child is interested in doing.
Yeah.
And then
Heaps of different
find
opportunities.
the places they can volunteer to have an experience to see if they actually like it or if they like the idea of it.
Yeah, we ran community centres, and then we took it, like now I'm going to take it next level because I've seen what we could do on a small scale. So now I want to create fun centres, and I want to build the first one here in Latin America. That's why I've come here, where kids are going to, because I'm seeing that my friends' kids all stuck on screens, and it's going to have everything in there. There's going to be like climbing walls, there's going to be a big foam pit where kids can jump from really high and do flips and backwards, or just jump and land in big foam pools. It's kind of parkour inspired. And there's going to be a big trampoline section, and there's going to be like an organic kind of kitchen where which we did in Australia, where parents and kids can all play with food and learn how to eat really healthy, and just all kinds of different activities that they can do in there, kind of like a play gym, play centre that the kids are going to be like, yeah, I want to go there again, and where mum and dad are going to go, sort of thing.
I also don't think it's a problem to negotiate with your kids on things like, hey, tomorrow I'd like to do, I'd like to spend the day at this thing.
Yeah.
And like, so, for tomorrow, I'd like you to not have any screens, and we're going to try this. And the next day, you can go back to your screens.
That's
because
amazing.
When they realize that this thing isn't taken away from them, it's just like, we're going to just, I'm going to respect your need, you respect mine. And so my mother would do that. She'd be like, tomorrow you can spend all day online, but I really want, like, today can we do this thing? And I would be like, fine. And then I would have a great time. And you can negotiate that way, and that's still peaceful,
Speaking to that, I just published a book, and this piece did not make it into the book I published. It's going to be in the next one. And I'm not going to spell out the entire piece for you, but I'm going to give you the name and the premise. The name is, don't reject acceptance culture, but don't accept rejection culture. And what that means to me is there's a lot of programming that kids will be exposed to be like, no, my parents aren't cool, doing things with my parents isn't cool. And this is a two-way emotional relationship, like every emotional relationship. You can't just give and give and give. The kid, any child, has the ability to give back. And if you talk about your needs and you make a deal with them, that just like Avens said, that you're not denying them what they need, denying them what they want to feel fulfilled, but make it clear that this is what you need to feel fulfilled, and don't do it in an aggressive way. I think that's completely reasonable.
Your hand keeps being up, and I'm sorry. Like, yes, you had your yes. You.
No, I didn't.
Okay, I thought you had your hand up before.
No, but I do want you to repeat the name of that book.
Oh, the book I just published is called Fields of a Revolution. Who Will Build the Roads? I have a couple of
Fields or fields?
Fields.
Okay.
So what's your perspective on your parents and who they are and how they ultimately facilitated who you are as people and the importance of that, and why we need to really think as people who are parents or I want to be a parent, and the importance of doing the unschooling, making sure we don't traumatize our children.
You take that one first.
Okay. So my parents and I get along very well. It helps that I live 3,000 miles away from them because but the funny thing is that my parents and I are like way too alike in certain ways. I mean, my parents were libertarian activists. I'm a libertarian activist. My parents were writing about and working on political campaigns and everything. I do the same. my mother and I are like way too alike, and so we actually clashed a lot when I was in my teens because we were just stepping on each other's toes a lot. And so when I moved across country, a lot of that tension went away. And so I'm literally, like, my brothers live within like 5 miles of my mother. Like, both of my brothers live within 5 miles of my mother, and I'm like live way across the country. And my dad and I get along awesome. Sorry, I've been watching the little kid on the side being like, here she go. But my dad and I are very, like, again, 3,000 miles away, but we get along very well. My perspective on my parents, I often will see things where I'll just be like, wow, like you gave a lot more than you needed to give here, like, and I wish I'd known, like, that you were doing the laundry until I was 13, and that should have been something, you know, like, these things will, like, come up, and I mean, even my parents will have, like, kind of like festering either guilt or resentment about things. Like, my mother, to this day, when I was 8 years old, I told my mother that I wanted to play the flute. And I don't know why. I think I saw a flute and I thought it was cool, and I didn't really like experience. I didn't have any concept of it. I was just like, oh, that looks like a cool instrument. So I was 8 years old, and my mother was like, oh, she's turning musical. That's lovely. So Mom just went out and bought me a flute without even like, okay, let's go to a music shop and like try different instruments and see if that's really what you want to do. Which is funny is I was a singer. Playing a flute and being a singer, they don't go well together. And I didn't know that until I got a flute. But Mom had spent $200 on this freaking flute. And like she spent this money on the flute, and then and then very quickly I was like, this is not fun because I can't sing while playing the flute, and like this is a stupid instrument. I don't like it. And so then I was like, Mom, I don't want to play the flute anymore. And she was like, I bought you a flute. Like, what the? Like, I spent $200 on that. You know how much $200 is? And she was furious because it was one of those times that she put her needs aside to try to like accommodate mine in a way like we didn't know this at the time. You can rent flute. Just so you know, you can rent a musical instrument for a child so that you can try it out. And that was not something we knew. So I feel bad that my mother that sometimes did not actually know that kind of stuff. To this day, she hasn't done it to me lately, but I'm not kidding. Like I think when I said I was moving to Los Angeles, my mother, like, I was 22 years old. My mother was like, "Is this gonna be like the flute?" It was so ridiculous. I was like, Mom. But that was totally something she used to do. Is I'd be like, I'm thinking about going back to college, and she'd be like, is this like the flute? And it was. But it's become her code for, is this really what you want to do, or is this just you think it's fun? So I would say my relationship with my parents is pretty awesome. Both my parents are great. My dad had an illness a couple years ago, and I went and took care of him for a little bit, I definitely, like, I give my parents tons of shit about things they should have done better or whatever, but we have a very close relationship, and actually my mother is in New Hampshire, and so she works with the Free State Project, so libertarians in New Hampshire deal with my mother more often than they deal with me, and it's really funny because, like, I'll be at an event like this, and someone will be like, hey, I had Thanksgiving dinner at your mom's house, and I'm like, great, how was that? Oh, she's really proud of you. She's telling everyone all about this stuff, and I'm like, she's reading me my Facebook, isn't she? And he's like, and they'll be like, yeah, she's so like your Facebook is great. She's telling us all about these things you're doing. It's so like ridiculous, but yeah. So
I mean, who can't show off your bird videos though?
Right.
Bird videos are adorable.
My Facebook is pretty entertaining.
It is.
So did you want to answer this question about the parents?
Yeah, I'll speak to my parents. They're both amazing people. My mom's got her master's degree in nonprofit management. My dad's a certified massage therapist and graduated from the Culinary Institute of America and blows glass for a living. And they're both incredibly inspiring, and I love to be with them, and I love to work with them. They have self-sabotage issues. My mom works all the time and doesn't get up and move, and my dad has communication issues, really, really poor with doing that. But I'm really proud of him because he's been working through it, and I'm proud of my mom because she's been going and walking in the woods with me. And I think that the thing to take away is you're probably going to make mistakes as a parent, and it's not the end, and it's not a reason to be ashamed.
Amazing answers.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Hold on, I saw her hand up first,
sorry.
and then I'm happy to.
well, mine was playing off.
Oh, okay. So you're just
I'm
laying
just
up.
wondering if your parents were both on board with the unschooling, because my husband's like kicking and screaming along for the ride.
Were your parents
Were
on
your
both
parents
from the same?
out of the gate both on board with?
My mom, I'm just gonna answer it in my own way. My mom recently, after I published my book like a month ago, came up to me and said, "You are amazing, Rowan. For a child that I could never get to write a single paragraph,
Yeah.
here you are at 24.
Can't with your own book.
You've got your own book. You're published. You're getting flown across the country by multiple different organizations as a subject matter expert, and
Wow.
you've done an incredible job." And yeah, there was some reticence, mostly because of that willful ignorance that I touched on before. I was had a lot of words. I listened to a lot of audiobooks, right? I had a lot of words. So I told my grandmother when I was like 6 or 7, very succinctly, "Grandmama, I am illiterate." And so that really put a shadow on my father's feels about it a little bit. But
He wasn't as, like, was one of your parents more positive about the idea of you unschooling than the other?
well, once the school told me I was too dumb to read,
They both supported you.
they couldn't keep me in, and they did homeschool me till 6th grade, and it was driving a huge rift in between our relationships. But I think, they kind of just gave up because I was very willfully ignorant. It's that willfulness. It's the peaceful parenting versus the homeschooling, because they were always peaceful parents, but they weren't always radical unschoolers. And the peaceful parenting led to the radical unschooling because they couldn't do anything else and still be
So
peaceful
they
parents.
fell into it.
Yeah, they fell into it. Exactly. They were both reticent about it. Yeah.
Answer this question, okay?
She's so cute.
My parents were definitely on the same page on unschooling. Well, like back in the day, in the 70s, they just called it homeschooling. They didn't have the unschooling thing, but they were both like, we're not going to spank our kids, and they were definitely very on the same page. My parents, when my brothers were born, because again, my brothers are 12 and 10 more years older than me. When my brothers were born, my dad was a stay-at-home dad, and he did the taking care of and unschooling my brothers. I get the guinea pig. And so my dad did that for a few years, and then when I think then my parents were both working, and then when I was born, my parents met another family that was homeschooling their daughter, and she was about 15, and they were like hardcore objectivists, and they were just kind of like, we want her to like get some responsibility and get out of the house and whatever. And so my parents were like, we will take you in, and we'll take care of you and help you like through some early college, and you'll be our like and my mother had me, so she now we're still really close, and she's in Los Angeles, but like she was there for my family while we were getting that, so like she was able to support. So I had 3 adults plus my 2 older brothers like when I was born, all involved in like homeschooling and unschooling me, but like everyone was on the same page on it. It was very but
I got a question. So, do you think the fact that you got that personal attention from your mom and your brothers were kind of educated by this person that took into the family, do you think that plays into the fact that you're going to have 3,000 miles across the country
No.
and Dave is 5 miles away?
I don't actually, because I mean, I would say that from 0 to 12, or from 0 to 9 or whatever, my brothers were with both of my parents a lot. My father was was home with them for a period of time. My mother was home with them for a period of time. I would say, I think it really is like a feminine energy thing. Like I really do. I think like my mother and I we look exactly the same, and we are exactly the same in so many ways. I mean, I would say that she's more bullhead than I am, but you know, she probably say the same about me. I like literally will have debates with my mother on Facebook, and I'll just be like, I don't think you were logically consistent here, and like we'll just like people will be like, oh, you're calling out your mom, like it's kind of ridiculous. But but I would say, I mean, one of the things that I think was crazy is when people talk about attachment parenting, they talk about how close, like how much time should you spend with your children, and like there's debates about like crying it out and breastfeeding and like all the mommy wars, you know. My mother breastfed each of us until we were 4, and then I slept in my parents' bed as much as I wanted to, as long as I wanted to. and I was a very independent child. Like I was always, like I was very shy, and I would like run behind my mother and hide. And there's a picture of me that someone put on a mug once of me literally hiding behind my mother, and like just my cute little eyes, like it's really ridiculous. We sent it to my granddad, because they couldn't get a shot of me because I was like the camera like was like a mall kiosk, and like literally, and this is literally the picture is like my mother's coat and me like this. But I think that I think that like that attachment, like everyone was there. When I was born, my brothers were 9 and 12, and my 9-year-old brother, his name is Hagbar Lars, he goes by Lars now. So Lars was so excited that he was getting a baby sister. He was 9 years old, and he would just go up to people, he'd be like, I'm getting a baby sister! Ah, I'm getting a baby sister! And he just hugged me, and he just hugged everyone. And then I was born, and he just wanted to hold me all the time. Whereas Ragnar was like, you're having another kid. Did you plan this? Like, diapers? Everything? Like, streaming time? Really? Like, it's very different things. But my brothers adored me. And every picture that we have of, like, our childhood, like, my brothers just holding me. They were just, like, I watched the scariest movies as a child. Like, I watched Lost Boys when I was 4. Ragnar, like, holding me closely and being like, look at the vampires. And I'd be like, oh my goodness, Ragnar! And, like, and they're just, like, wrapped up in my brother's arm. My family makes a joke that I didn't learn how to walk. Like, I learned how to read really, really fast. I didn't learn how to walk because people kept picking me up because I was the last ditch effort. My mother thought she was going through menopause, and I was born. I was the only girl, the youngest, only girl, and my parents were like everyone was so excited about me. I had mom, dad, both of my brothers, and Miria like loved me because I was a little baby, and she was like 15. This is so cool. Literally no one would stop picking me up. I was held all the time. I was just filled with love. And I recognized, like, to this day, I'm like, I've never felt unloved because I was so adored. I was so adored to the point where I'm always like, yeah, I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I came to this world now and I'm awesome. I'm like so wanted and so like everything. And I feel horrible for people who aren't because like it's great. Like when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling crappy about myself, when I'm feeling like, oh man, I didn't do this thing. I'm like, I'm awesome.
And at least my mom and dad.
My mom and dad think I'm awesome. My brothers think I'm awesome. I posted about like, oh yeah, I gave a speech. My brothers are both on my Facebook going, my little sister is awesome. And like my family is like very loving, very like, and I think it's so good. I think it's such a good thing for people to have. And like, and some people don't have that. My dad sends me a card for every stupid occasion you can think of, and every single time it's like, Avens, I'm so proud that you did blah 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 blah. Like, you know, I love you and I miss you every single time. Every phone call, I love you and I miss you. Like, my father's actually much more like intimate than my mother. My mother is just kind of like, hi, how are you? Like, my dad is like, Avens, how are you? I love you so much. Like, but like my family's very loving, and I think that like growing up with that, like, and again, still responsibility. Still, if you want to fucking eat that, you're gonna have to. But if you want to eat, eat this thing I don't want to make for you, you're gonna have to make it yourself. But I love you so much. So anyway, sorry.
That's actually a good spot for me to ask my question is, of the mother of a small child, how would one balance what the child wants with what you know is good for them? For example, we're watching G. Edward Griffin earlier. I let her have the freedom to run up and down the aisles because she knows that she can do that.
Yeah.
But then she came up to me and she had something in her mouth. What is that? That's a piece of glass. So at what point do you hover and like how do you draw the line between, okay, I know that you aren't supposed to play in the garbage, but you really want to, and you're going to start to create a scene if I limit your autonomy right now. So, I mean, when they're really small, it's hard to be that freedom, liberty parent because you know that they need the autonomy and they want the freedom, but how do you keep them out of danger, essentially? Like, it's a hard line. Some things are a little more obvious, like broken glass in the mouth. Okay, great. But, other things like bugging people or, this talk is rather informal, so she wanders up on stage and gives you some love. That's one thing, but if, in other situations, maybe not so much.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier once they get